Italian's worst nightmare. The ch is the opposite in Italian. It's k instead of ch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's, and then just the c instead of k, it's ch. So if it was just c, it would be persichetti.
Persichetti. I knew that. Just wanted
Yeah,
to
testing.
drop some knowledge on you guys.
Yeah,
But
layup.
we're here for another week. We've had my title of my stream is another historic week for history. So just shit just keeps popping off left and right. We're here in the middle of it, seeing it as the history is being made, which I don't have a problem with. You read the history books, we lived it. It's becoming a little more difficult to understand what's real and what's fake though out there because you have so many people on one side, so many people on another side, kind of combating ideas of what they think is the right thing going on in the situation, what the wrong thing is going on in the situation. So they write their own blogs, they write their own stories, and you got to take that information with a grain of salt and understand what's real and what's fake. But we'll get into it. But welcome in, Priamo. How's your week going?
Incredible. And we were just talking about this last Wednesday, how as soon as we get off the stream, within the next day or two, shit just pops off because they're waiting for the gentleman's code to do their live, get the information for that week out to the people, and
He
then
said, send in the airstrikes.
yeah, then Pompino said, "Oh, gentleman's code did the episode. All right, weekend strike, boom, dude." Every time we come back, it's now we're in war. Now Elon's saying Trump's on Epstein files. It's just breaking news every single fucking week.
It's something different too. They're keeping us on our toes.
Yeah, we don't know where it's coming from. It could be AI, it could be war, it could be nuclear Armageddon. Who knows? Well, what was the just first thing that came to my head this past week? So one of my favorite headlines to the Iran war was or not or just talking points was we're not in a war with Iran after we drop these bunker busters on their nuclear facilities. We're just it's a conflict. We're not at war with Iran. Like, all right, so you sent planes that dropped 30,000 pound bunker busting bombs on their nuclear facilities, but it's just a conflict. It's like, well, we're shooting rockets at each other, dropping bombs. It sounds like a war.
Yeah, right. It is a modern day war problem. It is tough to where do you draw the line? I mean, they used to draw the line at boots on the ground, American troops on the ground. It's officially a war. You send some B-2 bombers on a 48-hour flight from Missouri that,
Heroes, heroes.
they don't ever dip below 35 feet of altitude, 1,000 feet of altitude. I mean, it's tough to say. It is, we did carry out attacks and hopefully mission accomplished from what, President Trump has been saying. It sounds like mission accomplished, maybe, kind of. But there's also this theatrics to it that is like, we're going to go in, we're going to shoot down this nuclear facility. It may or may not have the stuff we're looking for in it. They might have moved it out. But you can't use that facility anymore, right? It's gone, it's blown up, so mission accomplished there. At the same time, Iran's like, okay, we're gonna shoot back these missiles at your base in Qatar. One sneaks through and like barely hits something on the outskirts of town, and then they're like, oh, mission accomplished for us. We attacked the U.S. back. So it's just like, all right, we're gonna hit you. We know you have to hit back. Everyone seems to be happy except for Israel, of course, right? They're the ones that are like, oh, we got to keep going. These guys, they're not done yet. So we'll hopefully have to reel them in so like they don't progress the conflict and make it go any further. But hopefully it's taken a stalemate for now.
Yeah, and Naeem, first of all, I gotta comment on Naeem's fucking message. He said, "Bro, you are looking beautiful with this emoji." Hey, why are you bringing the gay shit this early on the fucking stream? 8:19 in the morning. I can't handle the fucking.
You're looking beautiful, bro.
Yeah,
He's
come on.
admiring you.
Naeem's just jealous. I still have all of his Bangladeshi honeys hostage. Well, they're actually holding me hostage. They won't leave me alone. They're trying to keep me. They're trying to keep me from sending them back to Naeem in Bangladesh.
He doesn't comment when you don't have a shirt on, but when you put a shirt on, he tells you how beautiful you look.
Yeah, relax, Naeem. Relax, brother. But you were saying about conflict. Oh yeah. So, but that's a great point. So we drop these bombs on them. They send rockets at our base, Israel, whatever. Tel Aviv gets rockets flying at Tel Aviv. Is nobody thinking about the fact that nothing's actually happening, but things are happening, and people are claiming these as wins. So, like you said, the bunkers that got busted, the nuclear facilities, Israel had bombed the one of them earlier in the year. And so, what do you think that these people? You're always hero, brother. Do you think these Iranians just left everything in these nuclear facilities after that one got bombed by Israel? So now it's coming out that they don't even know if this shit was in there.
They probably dug deeper. They said, "Oh, we got to go deeper now."
Yeah, the El Chapo style. They're just going deeper, different tunnels, whatever. And then the rockets that were hitting Tel Aviv, you see these videos of these rockets just boom, 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 hitting Tel Aviv. Highly populated city in Israel. There's not like thousands of deaths or a bunch of people dying. It was nothing really even came out of anybody dying from those rockets. Yeah, go ahead.
I would say I did see a death toll that was pro mobile and sub dogs. What's going on?
Yeah.
I did see a death toll about 300 Israelis so far and about 700 Iranians. That was just a number that I saw online. Could be complete fabrication, but that's just what I saw.
Total as in throughout the
Like
whole
over 1,000.
conflict?
Yeah.
Okay, but not those actual like rockets that day on Tel Aviv.
No, I don't know about that, but that's just a death toll number that I saw 300 some and then 700 some, so like just over 1,000. Could be, I don't know. I'm not, I have no idea who tweeted that, but that was just something I saw.
Right. So the point was with Tel Aviv is that it wasn't coming out that there's all this death and destruction from these rockets that are hitting Tel Aviv. The U.S. does these bunkers, and then Iran does the U.S. military base, and then there's no casualties, nobody gets hurt. Like nothing actually happened. Not like when you look back at it. So then you have to stop and think, okay, well, who's to say that these governments aren't all in cahoots with each other?
Oh, they are for sure.
Absolutely.
They're calling each other ahead of time.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I know you guys just dropped the bunker busters on us, made us look bad. Give us an opportunity to look good. Let's go ahead and send some rockets at your base. We're not going to touch it. Nobody's going to die. Nothing's going to happen. But we just want to make it look like we attacked you. Oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Well, it's funny you say that because Trump did a news conference. I don't know, maybe last year when he was running, and they asked him about when he killed that general Soleimani, and they said Iran retaliated. He's like, yeah, they called me and they said, hey, we have to retaliate because you just killed our top general. We're not gonna hit the target, but we're gonna send rockets that way. He's like, it's just a way that they have to project power to their people and say, hey, like, listen, they hit us. We still have to like look kind of tough, not look like a bunch of pussies sitting here taking rockets and then not going to respond. So they have to respond of some sort. But like you're saying, it's coordinated. They're like, all right, we're gonna send it now. Evacuate all the F-15s, evacuate all the F-22s, and your guys, and nothing will actually happen.
Isn't that incredible? That's how the world works. It's all optics. It's all propaganda, perception, because perception is reality, and it makes sense because, like Bobby just said, if you get attacked, missiles killing our top leaders or top generals, and you're the regime in power, and you literally can't do anything to retaliate, can't do anything in return, how quickly do you think your people are going to revolt against you? Because the only reason people give power away to the state, to the government, to the institutions, is if in their minds they believe that these institutions, these governments, these bigger powers are going to protect them and going to take care of them in times like this. Well, as soon as the people don't believe you can do that, then why would they release any of their power, any of their freedoms or liberties to you, right? It's the whole game. It's like you only trust the government or give them money or taxes and authority because you're assuming that they're going to be responsible for you.
Yeah. But that's what I said on my one live stream the other day. It was like, what is like the US dollar backed by? Like, what do US citizens get for their money? They get the US military. That's basically what we get. That's our present for being able to pay our taxes every day. We have this blanket of protection around the globe. You have a US passport, you go into France, you go to Italy, you go to these places, you're protected by the US embassy there, and that's in that country. And that's what we get for our taxes. And so our dollar is backed by our military power. It's backed by our protection that we know we have when we could travel. And even sitting at home in your house, we have, the Golden Dome coming soon. So if someone does decide to shoot a rocket at us towards the homeland, hopefully you have that protection.
Exactly. Yeah. Hopefully. Exactly. So that's the point. And Iran is like these play. I mean, Israel does. Israel has nuclear weapons and a space program and all this shit, and Iran doesn't though. So yeah, you look at it and you say, all right, what are these? What's the game that's actually being played here? Because if you just go for the surface level, the news, what people are saying online, another great example, right? We've talked about in the past how fucking propagandized CNN is. Great example, to be fair to both sides, for Fox News. Fox News becomes incredibly propagandized towards war when times
Yeah.
like this. They did the same thing in 2002 with the Iraq War. Same thing. It's like, oh, they got weapons of ass destruction. They got weapons of they got this, that, and the third. And then what happens? Oh yeah, complete lie. Netanyahu fucking completely lied to the U.S. saying that they were certain they had weapons of mass destruction. They did
In
it.
a t in a time like this, you actually see the contrast super heavy because CNN is saying, "Oh, the attack didn't work at all. Like the nuclear sites are still there," and then Fox News is like, "Total destruction. It's obliterated." Da 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 da. So it's like right here now you can see it's like that's what I was saying in the beginning of the stream. Like, what is the truth? You don't really know because one side's telling you it didn't work, one side's telling you it completely worked to the fullest extent. It's in reality, it's probably somewhere in the middle. They hit the base, knocked down maybe the entrance, the exit, and some of the facilities. But we don't know. There's no way to know.
Exactly. Yeah, we're not in there checking the damage. Like, all right, what happened? Nah, you just dropped a bomb and hope something happened. So the with the news channels too, a great point that I heard Tucker Carlson making because he works at these news channels. Obviously, he worked at CNN, Fox News, and he's saying how the families, because you have to understand these are private organizations, these news channels and these newspapers. They're owned by families. These are people that own these networks. Where do you think these talking points, where do you think the propaganda comes from? From the people who own the channels, right? So, for example, the Murdochs, they own Fox News and the what's the one newspaper? Not newspaper, but I forget which one it is. Wall Street Journal, maybe. No, one of those. But what they would do is they're gonna send down the talking points to their executive producers, et cetera, the individuals who put together the show, put together the talking points, and then that news anchor, they just get the piece of paper that says, "Here's what you're talking about today," and that's just what they talk about. So, and they will influence what gets talked about based off of what their interests are. Also, these people who own these news channels, what do you think they're watching in their free time for their news? Their own network. So they want to hear the things that they like, things that they agree with on their network. They're not going to watch, they're not going to own Fox News and then have some liberals come on and say, da 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 da. It's like, no, I don't want to listen to that. So yeah, and then these news networks also own media, or not media, news companies. So then that's why they're all in cahoots with each other. They own the news companies, they own the TV stations, and this is how they get all this information out there. And as soon as you go outside of the talking points or the consensus viewpoint for the left or the right, then you get in trouble. You get your hand slapped, and that's why Tucker Carlson eventually got fired because he kept asking the questions that they didn't want him to ask on air. So like, all right, get out of here, Tucker. Kick rocks. So yeah,
Yeah, and that's why you also see even the satellite shows like you could have Fox News. I could see the building right on my window. Fox News Tampa Bay is right there. They get the same thing. It's even though it's the local news here, whether it's Fox News New York, Fox News Los Angeles, Dallas, Texas, like wherever it is, they're still going to get kind of the same talking points. You're just going to have different people presenting you the information is basically all it is. They're still it's their network of being able to get information out. But bringing it back to the actual, conflict going on, the the way that they did it, did you see the way that the US did it, like with the B-2s, like what the actual optics of the mission were?
in what sense? I mean, yeah, I know they sent B-2 bombers. They flew from Missouri. They diverted the Iranian government's attention with
With the other two, yeah, that's what I say. Two of them flew west, and then seven flew east, and then the seven were just like completely off the radar, just like zipping for 30 some hours. And then even I remember when the news reports came out there was two B2s going to Guam, and that's what everybody thought. Okay, they're going from, Cali to Guam, and then they're going to do their mission from there. But that was what just people were reporting on. And that's the thing too, is that this was top secret, of course, but they could have been, intentionally reporting on the B2s that were going to Guam to divert even more attention away. It's like, okay, they might have been on the radar for the military, but now it's like getting people's attention. It's like, oh, there's two B2s going to Guam. Meanwhile, the other seven are going, on the mission completely the other way. So just the pure optics of it were confusion and, you look this way, but we're going this way. Just insane by the military.
What do you think about that too? Do you really believe that those other B2s went by completely 100% undetected? Nobody knew about them. Like, do you really think that Iran had no idea about it?
I mean, even if they did, there's no way to stop it, but it's like they're so high up. They're
That's true.
I don't know if what they fly at, but they fly really high because the bombs that they end up dropping, they need so much velocity to get through the earth and the concrete that's in the mountain that they have to be so high up that unless you have satellites, which they probably do, but I don't think they could track them. No, I don't think they could.
Yeah, I have no idea how the technology works. I'm just asking in general. Yeah, I'm curious. Did they know beforehand, and they just, again, we're talking about how they're just calling each other saying, "Hey, we got to look good, the U.S. We got to make it look like we just destroyed your nuclear facilities, even though there's not shit in them." Let us. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Those are the questions to ask. You have to ask these questions like, did they actually know that they were coming? Was it a surprise? There was another point I was going to make. Oh, this is the other point too. So online too, you notice how nobody, or at least myself, I've seen zero media, zero perspective, zero content come from the Iranian side online and on social media as well.
Well, it's super suppressed over there anyway.
So I was going to say is that also shows you how like you got to be careful by just getting one side of the story, right? So if you're always getting your side of the story from the Americans, from the Israelis, from the New York U.S. media, you're only ever going to get a demonized version of those people or that government and a warped perspective on them. This is the
Yep.
same thing why they suppressed and censored the Osama bin Laden manifesto when he talked about why he did 9/11. Have you heard about that?
I have heard about it, yeah, but I
Yeah.
don't think I ever read his manifesto.
The U.S. government freaked out when it was going viral on TikTok, saying you got to censor, you got to ban it, you can't. Da, 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 da. So they took it off air. Tucker Carlson read it all live on TV. They tweaked on him, told him you can't do that. You like Osama bin Laden, etc. So they tried to censor the perspective of these people, which it's not to say that Osama bin Laden's a good guy. Of course not. It's not to say that these Iranians in the government chanting death to America are good people. I'm not saying that. But when people wish to do harm to you or your nation or bomb you or kill you, etc., it would make sense to at least understand why do these people think this way. Because at least if we can understand what their motive is, why do they want to bomb us? Why do they want to commit terrorism towards us? What is this? Why do they have so much angst against us? We should probably figure that out so we can see if there's something else we can do about it. But they don't want you to see that perspective because they want it to be, these are evil people. We need to go to war. We need to go so they can go make more money, right?
Yeah. Well, we talked about it a lot about the military industrial complex, how much power the machine has in that realm, where it's like Lockheed Martin's got their guys and Boeing's got their guys, and they're in the ear of some people who's in the ear of the president, who, it's definitely the military industrial complex has a lot of power that people don't even realize, especially in Washington, D.C. But in terms of, like you're saying, the ideologies that these people have, that is a problem because people here don't ever see that side or even care to see that side, right? Like we live in the Americanized world where we have our problems going on here on the day to day. We don't even think about it. We don't even think about what's going on in Iraq, Afghanistan, Iran, right? We just don't. So when these crazy ideals come up that, I think a lot of it actually has to do with Israel. It's like Israel is kind of like our projection of power in that region, and they do not, those two religions don't mesh well together. It's just what it is, right? They've had conflicts for thousands of years now, and they see that as the Americanism in the Middle East, and that is what they assume to believe that is mostly Americanism, which it kind of is, but it kind of isn't at the same time. So I think that's why a lot of hate stirs up because of the actions of the Israel government, and then it's a bad look on America because they call us our greatest ally. So it could go either way in that regards. I don't believe that's true to a certain extent. I believe that there is a lot of Israel influence in the government with AIPAC funding and lobbying. But when it actually comes down to it, I don't think there's as much back and forth as you want to see some people on social media project. Like I think there's certainly proof in the pudding that there's influence from Israel to America in the lobbying. 100% there is. But there's some of these people online that's all they talk about. And I'm sure you've seen them. That's their whole stick is that they talk about this. Now Candace Owens is becoming like this, and even Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes is okay in some of the things he says about it, but it's like it's becoming their whole personality, and it's like it's not the full story. It's a piece of the story for sure. It's a chapter or two, but it's not the full story. And I think the military-industrial complex has a lot to do with the rest of the story. Um, but yeah, I don't know where I was going with that rant, but it's some of the ideals that these people come up with, like you were saying, over there that they like the manifesto for Osama bin Laden.
Right.
There's just the ideals that float around.
Right. And what Osama bin Laden was saying in that manifesto is well, I'll start with this. On the American side, whenever we were getting the propaganda to go into Iraq and go into this war against terror, George Bush said, these people hate us, and this is not an exact quote, but this is essentially what he said. They hate us because of our freedoms.
Mm-hmm.
Because of our freedoms. That's why they were bombing us. That right there is just the biggest piece of bullshit I've ever heard in my life. If I would have heard that live in the moment, I definitely would have done what I would think now. What are you fucking talking about, bro? These are regular human beings. This is the thing, is they demonize other humans. As soon as you would meet somebody from Iran or meet somebody from Palestine or any of these places, not even Palestine, what's another place they demonize? China, Russia, whatever. Any of these places they demonize. These people are exactly the same as us.
Right, they're just going about their day, going to work, stopping getting groceries, hanging with their friends.
It's the same thing. Every person wants the same thing. Safety, their kids to go to school, be able to have a family. Like that's pretty much what everybody wants. Everybody. Any normal person. So so what was I making? Oh yeah, so with the Osama bin Laden, they hate us because of our freedoms, because our women, they hate us because women here wear bikinis and all this shit. Da, da, da. Like that's why they hate us. No, that's not why they hate us. Osama bin Laden literally puts it out in this video that he made, telling exactly why they were doing terrorism on the U.S. Because you have military bases throughout the entire region. You do
Entire world.
Entire world. So you have military bases all over the region, all over our countries. You overthrow regimes violently. That's not democratic, right? I forget the other points he makes, but those were the big ones, saying that like you guys over here completely changing our way of life, telling us how we need to live when that's not how they want to live. Obviously, at some point, these people are going to get upset, right? Mm-hmm. Liberalism, if it's democracy, if it's about the people deciding, liberalism definitely isn't for the entire world. Those Muslims, they're not liberals, and they don't want to be liberal. And who's to say that they're wrong, and who's to say we're wrong? It's not to say anybody's right or wrong. It's just you should have the choice to decide. Mm-hmm. So, but that's why they were creating these acts on terror. It's not because they hate the American people. They hate our freedoms. No. It's because we're infringing upon their freedoms, infringing upon their territory, their way of life, where they've been living for thousands of years. At some point, someone's going to get together and say, hey, let's fucking stop these motherfuckers. So, is he right to have done that? Of course not. He killed American citizens. That's not good. But the point is to understand what is their motive. Try to understand your enemy. Try to understand other human beings. You're still people at the end of the day. They think just like us. Why do they feel this way?
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think to a certain extent it's still that, idea and that belief system is alive today, and that's why we still have these unfortunate things going on in the Middle East. It's because we still have bases out there. We're still doing things out there, and it's hopefully, this brings it all to an end because if the nukes are done, hopefully it's done and over with, then you just wipe your hands, start a clean slate because you've done everything you have to do out there, right? You went through Syria, you went through Afghanistan, you went through Iraq. Now you took out Iran's nuclear weapons. It's like, what else do you need to do over there, right? Let them rebuild, let them become economically prosperous, partner with the leaders out there like Qatar, like Saudi Arabia, like the United Emirates. Make them be the leaders and then have their influence go through the rest of the region. And I think that's kind of where we're getting. You saw when Trump went on his Middle East trip, he hit those exact countries, right? The big powerhouses, Dubai and Saudi Arabia with the prince. So those are the militaries that are beginning to stack weapons and being able to stack different aircrafts and things, right? So let them be the leaders in the region since now, it's a lot of the countries like Iraq and Afghanistan have been completely demolished over the past 25 years and just and it goes to like what you said about the regime overthrowing the governments, right? That is like I think we talked about this actually like last week, maybe 2 weeks ago. Like that's the whole point of the CIA. I think we did talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the whole point of the CIA is to get intelligence of these enemies that the government proclaims as enemies, right? Maybe dictators or guys like Osama bin Laden. Um, is to go in, gather intelligence around what they're doing and who they're contacting with, and then go in there and take them out. That's like the whole point of the CIA is to gather intelligence around these people. So we've done that for how long now? Since 9/11, since before 9/11, right? Since Desert Storm in Iraq. I believe Desert Storm was in
Mm-hmm.
Iraq. So it's like we've done everything we could possibly do. If it hasn't worked in 30 years, just let it go now. And I think this is the end. I think it's a turning point, and we're gonna look back on this in another 20 years when things are different and like wow, like Trump actually did it. Like hopefully, this is just projecting hope and peace around the world, but hopefully that's what we could look back on and be like, wow, it's like we ended the nuclear program. Iran, maybe they went on to change their government a little bit, and now they're very prosperous. And the same with the surrounding countries, right? That's what just my hope is.
So yeah, and that would be fantastic. The other conclusion I always come to too when I think about these things late at night, I'm just in my head thinking, and the reality of war is that it just won't ever stop, and the reason being is there's always going to be competition for resources, for supremacy, for power. That's just human nature. Why do people compete in sports? Why do people compete in business, these other realms? Because human beings just want to win. They want to compete. There are some people that are conquerors. There's some people who want to express or gain influence, power. So when I think about the world and how the stage is set up, yeah, it sounds amazing, and I'm with this. I'm for peace. I don't. Why would I? Why would any individual actually want war, people to die, etc.? Of course not. It's just why. But the reality you come to, and I understand the argument that's being made by those in charge and those who are running our foreign policy, is that well, if we don't project power or influence, or continue to try to acquire influence in new territories and new regions, somebody else will, and eventually that'll become the downfall of America. So if you allow China to take over supremacy, Russia.
100%.
So I get it, because you also can't lose the game just because you don't want to play anymore, but other people are going to still play the game. So that's the hardest, that's the most difficult reality to come to, is that when you're really honest with yourself, it's like the war's not gonna. It just won't stop, because then China will put their influence there, and
Exactly.
in Taiwan, and then they'll invade, and then they're just gonna do it. It's been human history for the last 100,000 years. It's just gonna happen.
It's so funny you say that because I was actually thinking it was like, we carried out those strikes, right? But you didn't hear China say a word. You didn't hear Russia say a word. Like they didn't say anything. They didn't like because what are they going to say? because when they start to speak up, now it's poking at the bear, right? It's poking at the U.S. It's poking at the European Union. It's like, okay, then it's a bigger conflict, but they didn't say a word.
Nothing.
And I actually think, after kind of this has cooled down now for 24 hours at least, Thursdays after we do the call. Um,
Yeah, they'll probably
but
pop off. Some-
but I actually think that the Russia-Ukraine war is a lot worse in a lot different ways. One, it's you're fighting over territory, right? You're fighting over physical land where people live. There's children growing up there. They're going to school there. There's grandmas there that are just trying to raise a family. So the eastern side of Ukraine has been decimated, and they're working with drone technology. There's boots on the ground. They're shooting guns at each other, right? It's a lot more dangerous, and there's been a lot more deaths. They're calculating over 1 million people have died in that war, right? So that's a way more violent war, right? Boots on the ground,
right.
neighbors fighting over the border territory. It's like if the US started, in Mexico started fighting at the border. That'd be way worse for our country than anything that's happening. Ballistic missiles shooting here and there, landing. That's bad, don't get me wrong, but I think the war Russia Ukraine is a lot more dangerous. For one, you're testing physical military assets. They're testing drone technology. They're testing tank technology, right? This is all stuff that is like meant to kill people. So it's a lot different, and hopefully that war doesn't expand because once that starts expanding, now you're dragging other countries into it, Belarus, and you're dragging in all these old USSR countries into it, and who knows what could happen.
Right.
And like you're saying, like from an ideology standpoint, it's like Putin understands this, and he's trying to conquer. He's trying to get back that piece of Ukraine that was with the U.S. And Zelensky, the puppet, is trying to hold off the guy, right? So there's so many different moving parts with this in terms of like a war standpoint. I think it's fascinating though. But I
Yeah.
agree, no more.
Yeah. And there was just a point you made with Putin. What was it? I had a good point on that.
Just being a conqueror, trying to conquer the land back.
Yeah, that wasn't what I was going to talk about, but I'll go off of that. Because yeah, Russia has a historical claim to that piece of land in Ukraine, right? Those people there on the eastern side of Ukraine, Crimea, obviously Crimea is a important resource, rich piece of land, but those people in eastern Ukraine are ethnically Russian. They speak Russian. They're Eastern Orthodox Christian, and if they did a vote on whether or not they wanted to secede to Russia, they would probably vote to secede to Russia, but they wouldn't let them vote for it. This was the thing that they tried to do. So there's a historical claim for Russia in that piece of land. So you'd say, oh, you're going to bring Ukraine into NATO, even though we told you can't put Ukraine in NATO. Okay, fine. Then we'll go ahead and take that piece of land back. So again, there's arguments for both sides. Everybody is playing in their own best interest. To assume that somebody like Putin or some of these other world leaders are just purely maniacal, evil, just tyrannous conquerors that are just trying to. That's not how these people are, right?
Yeah.
They 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 develop this caricature of this person to try to
Through
create
the
this,
media mostly.
exactly, through the media, to try to create this enemy for you that we need to go fight against. When in reality, you see these interviews with Putin, like Tucker Carlson does. He's a normal guy doing what he believes is in the best interest for his people, which is his job. So you cannot fault somebody for doing that when you put him in a position where he has to do that. It's just, so there's always different sides to it. You got to understand everybody's perspective, and understand the history behind it all, so you know why people are making the claims to certain pieces of land or why they should do this, that, or third. You know, the people who think that the war in Israel and Gaza, which started with those strikes in, I think it was 2024, 2023. People are like, oh yeah, Hamas attacked Israel. That was the start of the war. Now Israel has to attack Hamas. Brother, they've been doing this since the 40s, since the 50s. They didn't start like. Look at the history. What happened? How did they get there? What did the countries come to? How did they get displaced to the what's it called? They're not the Gaza. What's it called, that area? I know it's Gaza, but is it the Gaza Strip?
Yeah, the Gaza Strip.
Yeah. So they get displaced to that area in the region. It's like, it didn't start last year. player. That's not how this works. So when you look at it like that, or you look at Russia, Ukraine, and think that it just started whenever Putin decided to invade Ukraine to make it seem like he's this conqueror, it's like, yeah, he is trying to get back that piece of land, but that's not when it started. It didn't start with the
No,
invasion. There was
no.
all this provocative behavior for 20 plus years that he's been in power, where the U.S. promised they would not expand NATO. U.S. expanded NATO, expanded NATO, expanded NATO, expanded NATO. Ukraine was the last straw. Biden goes, oh yeah, we're going to bring Ukraine into NATO. The last buffer, the last country between NATO and the U.S. and the Russian border. Putin said it's too much, too much. My people are going to overthrow my government, kill me for not defending our homeland. It's like, I
Yep.
can't.
Yeah, it's the one point you brought up about Tucker Carlson's interview with Putin was Putin, as soon as Putin started the interview, he's like, let's go back to 126 AD. And Tucker Carlson's like, whoa, 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 what? Why are we going back to 126 AD? It's because he wanted to tell the story and tell the history of like why this is the way it is, you know? And that's why, some people are just like, I don't like history. I don't like learning history. It's like, well, history repeats itself. History rhymes with its past self. So if you could understand why things happened in the past, you have a better understanding of why things may happen in the future. So it's super important to understand why the world is the way it is. Like even the borders, it's like borders have been ever changing for hundreds and thousands of years. You have to understand why, maybe people in Ukraine and people in Russia do or don't get along. Like you have to understand why the border is the way it is, and we're lucky enough to have understand American history, so we understand why our borders are the way they are from the Louisiana Purchase and purchasing Alaska and all those types of things, right? We understand this as Americans, but we might not understand it on a foreign outlook, like looking at Europe or looking at the Middle East, right? So we don't understand those things as well. But I think it's super interesting that Putin would start the interview off, being 2000, looking 2000 years ago, trying to tell the story of why he is coming to the conclusion of doing what he's doing. So it's super interesting from that perspective. And what was I going to say? I just think that the way that it's shaping out in Russia and Ukraine is that there has to be an end in some way. And it's going to be Russia reclaiming some land. So like you said, like
Yes.
Crimea is a big piece that no one talks about. Crimea was actually given back to Russia during Obama's presidency. So even before Trump came into office, they invaded it, they took it back, and they used it as a major shipping import and export because it's a big part. I don't know what body of water it's on,
I
but
think the
it's on
Black Sea.
the Black Sea. That sounds right. So yeah, it's oh, I know what I was going to say. So, and going off of the history of Russia, I watched this video the other day that just the YouTube algorithm was working, and they were talking about big nuclear weapons, right? And back in everybody remembers the Cold War with Russia and the U.S. After World War II, we had the nuclear weapon, and Russia was also building nuclear weapons. And I forget his name, and I just watched this video, but some Russian, the leader of Russia, the Russian military at the time, he wanted to like really show America, like, hey, listen, we got the big guns, like we're the big dogs in town. So he built the biggest nuclear weapon ever built, and he had some Russian scientists working on it, and they were going to detonate it on this island north of Russia, like pretty much in the Arctic. Like nobody lives up there. They were going to blow it up, and you'll see where I'm going with this after a while. It's he so they built this nuclear weapon, so it was like 100 or like 1,000 megatons. And right now a modern nuclear weapon is only about 1/100th of the size of this bomb, right? So he thought this was the bomb of all bombs. He was going to scare the Americans, like don't mess with us. So he detonated the bomb north of Russia in the Arctic, this Arctic island that nobody lived on at the time. But do you know that this bomb that they detonated back in the 50s is responsible for over 600,000 deaths of premature Russians a year? Just from the radiation poisoning that has seeped into the water, seeped into the island, and through, radiation poisoning, it damages your DNA. So this radioactive material gets into humans' DNA. they transition it to their kids, their offspring, and for generations upon generations, it's in total, it prematurely kills 600,000 people a year. From this one bomb that detonated almost, 75 years ago, it's responsible for that many deaths a year. So where I was going with this is that nuclear weapons cannot happen. Like this is a whole point of I think this war going on is like not letting someone like a country like Iran have a nuclear weapon that maybe they feel is going to start dropping them because this stuff is so dangerous and so potent that it's going to and it could ruin the earth, if we have to get involved with nuclear weapons. That was a really cool video that I watched just, of this weapon that they built so long ago to scare the Americans.
This so yeah, this I never heard of that, and that's so interesting, and again shows you the effects of these bombs is it's more than just where they drop it and who's there at the time of it being dropped. What you just said is so important. It's about the lasting effects of it. If these things start getting dropped, it's not if you're not near it and you didn't die on impact, you're like safe. No, you're going to become harmed from the effects in the long run. The damages to your DNA, the life expectancy that you have, etc. Yeah, it's just it's not a game we can play. The other thing I understand why there's a push to make sure that other countries do not get nuclear weapons, for example, Iran, because all you need is one country, which could be Iran, with radical leaders in place, to get a nuclear weapon, who then does not actually care about their own mortality. So you have the kamikaze for the Japanese, you have suicide bombers, extremists, terrorists that are Muslim, people who are literally willing to die because they believe in their faith or in their religion that dying for this reason will secure me X place in heaven, X reward, etc. So for them, their mortality doesn't matter because they have more to expect in the afterlife. It's very dangerous for these people to acquire something like a nuclear bomb because the only reason the US and Russia and China, these major countries who have nuclear bombs, don't use them is they know because it's mutually assured destruction.
Destruction, yep.
If we start dropping them, everybody's dying. So that's what stops us from using them. Well, you can't use that same logic with individuals who are radicalized and believe that by dying for this cause, I'm actually gaining so much in the afterlife. You can't reason with them in a practical sense with the mutually assured destruction deterrent because for them,
they don't care.
They don't care. They're thinking, yeah, that's fine. I'm okay. That's dangerous because you can't reason with them in the same way you could reason with a Russia or a China, right? They don't want to destroy the earth. Other people, they just don't give a fuck. It's possible. So I understand the urgency to prevent those people from getting these kinds of weapons because that deterrent is no longer there. So then what would deter them from using them?
Yeah,
they have to want to survive themselves to not use them.
Yeah, so we have to come to a denuclearization phase where we're getting rid of countries that have nuclear weapons. Like Pakistan does not need a nuclear weapon. Like they don't need one. India doesn't need one. Even like we don't need one, right? We don't need one per se because we're not going to use it. But I mean, we created it, so we're kind of allowed to have it because we made it. Russia made it. It's like you kind of just like stole the idea and you stole the technology, which is okay. Like people do that, but it's like we the OGs. Like when you're an OG, you're an OG. It's like you created it. That's why you're allowed to have it. But these other countries, I believe, denuclearization is the future, and that's where we need to go.
Yeah. Because again, and I also understand why people they themselves believe they need it because then it becomes a deterrent. It's okay. Well, if you have them, I have to have them because if we both have them, then you won't use yours. But if you only have them, so it's just that game. It's that game theory of, well, once one person has it and does it, everybody needs to do it, and then the more people that do it and have it, the more other people need to do it and have it. Otherwise, they feel like they can't be safe in this world, or they need Big Daddy, or they need Big Daddy USA or somebody to watch over them. Israel has nuclear weapons. Who else in that region? Because that's what I'm saying is we're so afraid with Iran having them. It's like, well, Israel has nuclear weapons, Pakistan, all these other countries in the region. Now, of course, they're on our side, so it's like that's okay. But all these places have them, or not all these places, but a lot of places have them that don't
Hmm.
need them,
There's like
right?
15 countries that have them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Russia, I saw a graphic. I don't know how true it is, but Russia had or showed. I saw a graphic. Russia has the most nuclear weapons. U.S. has second. China has third.
Hmm.
Now, again, reportedly, how many they have. Obviously, they're not going to report everything they have. China's not going to tell us exactly how many nuclear weapons they have.
And the thing with Russia is they, like I said before, they went through a phase where they were just trying to, big dog us. They were just building more and more and more, bigger, bigger. So they have a lot stockpiled, How many of those would detonate? Who knows? Maybe half, but that's not the point. The point is they have them. So
Right. All right, Harry. Well, I got
yeah.
I got a meeting here in a few. You want to wrap it up with a couple of words for the gentleman?
Yeah, guys, if you guys made it this far in the video, please make sure to like, subscribe, whatever page you're watching this on, wherever you're watching this on X, YouTube. Make sure Twitch, if you're watching on Twitch, I saw some people in the Twitch chat here. Make sure to follow us. You won't miss a beat on any of the videos that come out or any of the live streams. Also, if you guys want to work with us on what we do on the day today, you want to have a direct channel to access our communications, look at crypto charts, building businesses using AI, make sure to tap into the Taylor's code. The link is in our descriptions of these videos. Make sure to go in there, get your membership, $50 a month, and we'll get you guys right into the community where you guys could talk with us and any other questions you guys have. We'll answer it directly, jump on calls, talk through work, whatever you guys are building. We'll help you guys out. All right?
That's fucking rocket. All right, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you next week. We may have a special guest. We'll see if he can get off of his pillow that early in the morning. All right. Let me do a little Mr. Producer. Mr. Producer. We got all them hoes.